Today's video is an art lesson that I call the Ryuichi Sakamoto Ringtones Experiment. Now, Ryuichi Sakamoto, you may know his name, but if you don't know his name, you probably know his music. He was a world-famous Japanese composer, pianist, record producer, and actor, and he was a pioneer in electronic music. You might think, what does a musician have to do with an art lesson? Well, I was watching a documentary about Sakamoto, and in one segment he was working with a youth orchestra, and at one stage in rehearsing with the youth orchestra he asked them all to get their phones out and to play their ringtones, and he stood at the piano and listened to the sound of all the ringtones beginning to play together, because he thought it might be interesting to see if he could compose some music, some improvised music based on what he was hearing in this random mix of ringtones. Now, he commented afterwards that musically it was a disaster. It didn't lead to any composition that he was happy with, but socially it was a great success. Now, as I watched this brief segment during the documentary, it was like a light bulb going on in my head, and I thought I could use this in the classroom with my art students, but extend it, develop it a little bit more. So this is what I tried. I asked my art club students to hold their phones in the air while they were playing their ringtones and to listen to them. And maybe for about 30 seconds we listened. And then I asked them to pick out some sound or tune that they recognized in some way and then start singing it at the same time that the ringtones were playing. And then after a few seconds of this, we stopped, turned the phones off, and I said, now feel and think and use your memory and use all of the sounds that you heard as inspiration for creating an artwork. Well, my students were delighted. This proved to be a really great, what I call a challenge, or what some other art educators call a motivator. This became a great starting point that enabled the students to express their own feelings, to recall their own memories, and to tell their own stories in ways that were very uniquely stimulated by the sounds they heard. I recommend trying it. Now, I worked with 11-year-olds, my 5th graders, and I know that this would work with my younger students, 9-year-olds, right through to 13 or 14-year-olds who I'm working with. But I learned some things about how to do this, because when I first suggested to the students that they go to their phones and make their ringtone sound, immediately they wanted to select a ringtone. So I decided that there's 2 ways of doing this. You can encourage the students to enjoy and embrace the randomness of them using their existing ringtone and try that once, and then allow them to choose a ringtone after having done the first sound experiment and see what happens there. So there's different ways of doing that. Also, I'm sure your students know how to record their ringtones, because you need to have the ringtones playing for at least 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Some of my students worked in buddy groups and they phoned each other and then recorded their ringtone. Some of them just opened the settings, the ringtone settings function in their phones, and then played it that way. But I recommend this as a creativity and imagination experiment, what I'm calling the Ryuichi Sakamoto Ringtones Experiment. Can you imagine doing this with your students or trying it yourself? You'll notice that when I suggested to the students that they just draw on their memories, their feelings, their thoughts in response to the sounds that they heard, I gave no other instructions. They gave no instructions about what media to use, what topic to choose, how they should think about their feelings. Because the idea of motivations or starting points or challenges, such as this one, and even story-based challenges such as my family or my friends or my animals. The idea of these is to create open-ended opportunities for the students so that they engage their own imagination and they engage their authentic feelings and thoughts so that they are completely integrated with the image they start creating and making. That they must feel free to experiment with the image and to try things, and that there's no jeopardy. You might have also thought while you were listening to me and watching this that there's a really good tie-in between the art program and the music program. And if you're working in a school where you have a music teacher, it might be a great idea to extend the experiment and to buddy up with the music teacher and see if there are elements in the music program that can partner with what you're doing in the art room with this. I know that Sakamoto was such a pioneer and leader in electronic music. There might be all sorts of possibilities to grow this unit as an art and music partnership.